So today I'm just going to go over some things, and I am pretty excited for the new changes. Things are changing in Flat Earth, and people are coming and going. Channels are being deleted. Channels are springing up, just like life. Everything's changing. So I saw this article, and it states that the discovery of giant penguins suggests New Zealand and Antarctica used to be very different. Okay, so it would have been tough work to pick it up, as scientists say, and weighed between 70 kilograms and 80 kilograms. So this is the model they have of this ancient penguin, which they found. So they were in New Zealand, and they found an enormous penguin standing taller than the Batman villain, so of the same name. So the penguin, so it was taller than the fictional character from the Batman movie, the Penguin. So remains of the flightless bird were found in the town of Waipara by researchers from Canterbury Museum, so who have determined that it roamed the region during the Paleocene epoch between 66 and 56 million years ago. So as you know, basically dinosaurs are it's all bullshit. And what they found was probably some animal that had no connection to anything, and then they pin it as a ancient penguin. So apparently penguins were around when the dinosaurs were around. So it was like a dinosaur penguin, maybe. And so it was the Crossvalia waiparensis species, one of the oldest and largest penguins known to have existed. So they, I guess it was one of the Crossvalia waiparensis species. So apparently these species were categorized and cataloged, and they knew about it. So it was greater in size than 1.2 meters in the emperor penguin. So it was probably the biggest penguin right now if it was alive. At a whopping 1.6 meters, the Crossvalia waiparensis is taller than the villainous gangster penguin in Batman Returns, who was played by the 1.47 meter high Danny DeVito. Okay. So it just goes on, and it would have been tough trying to huge feet, and they were found by paleontologist Leigh Love at the Waipara green sand fossil site in North Canterbury last year, and they were prepared for study by local fossil expert Al Mannering. So the green sand fossil site in North Canterbury in New Zealand, apparently. North Canterbury, New Zealand. So it was found in North Canterbury. So this is Canterbury. Christchurch is in Canterbury. And so they were examined, and apparently they were found to be supposedly around 66 and 56 million years ago. So as you can see, 66. This is a number in numerology that they love to use, and they play around with 66 a lot, as you know, Route 66 and 666 and all this stuff. very esoteric number in secret societies, definitely. So that now here, Dr. Schofield said the discovery showed how closely connected New Zealand was to the icy continent. So apparently New Zealand was very close to Antarctica. So when the Crossvalia species were alive, New Zealand and Antarctica were very different from today. Antarctica was covered in forest, and both had much warmer climates. So millions of years ago, they think Antarctica was covered in forests, apparently. So, as we know, the Antarctica, it experiences lots of different changes in terms of its climate. So it's getting warmer, it's getting hotter, but it's always fluctuating, basically. It's never the same from what we can tell right now. So scientists do say that millions of years ago it was not cold. So the fossils discovered there have made our understanding of penguin evolution a lot clearer. It comes to mind more fossils which represent new species are awaiting description. So the findings were published in Alturinga, an Australasian Journal of Paleontology, just a week after another team of scientists in New Zealand revealed that they have discovered the fossil remains of what is believed to be the largest parrot that ever lived. So they're finding apparently all these old species, the largest penguin, the largest parrot. So this is all basically just a distraction. There's always something that will be found, that will be discovered, just to keep you from knowing the truth, basically. They will give you numbers. 56 million years, 66 million years ago. All these numbers that have no relation to reality at all. So standing up to 1 meter tall and weighing about 7 kilograms, it is thought that the giant bird named Heracles Inexpectatus, after the mythical Greek demigod, could have dined on its smaller avian relations. The fossils of several giant species include Crossvalia whiteparenses will be displayed in a new exhibition about prehistoric New Zealand at Canterbury Museum later this year. So, like they say, 66 we have here. It's 33 times 2, basically 56. We throw in there. So if your bullshit meter is pretty high, and you can kind of reference a lot of stuff, these people, they're not finding these things. They just say they are, basically, and it's just another narrative out of the Masonic world and their attempt right now to keep hold of what they think is their world, but it's not theirs, and people are waking up, and it's getting easier, basically, as more people come in and start posting things. So that's just one article I wanted to write, not write, but to talk to you about. Yeah, this is another one. So as you might know, last year in December, there were 2 explorers that were exploring Antarctica. Apparently, they crossed they crossed Antarctica as solo explorers, and they were all doing it at the same time. The Army captain Louis Rude was doing it at the same time as Colin O'Brady. So just to kind of show you how this is just a facade, basically. I'm just gonna show you some some of the articles that they had written about them. So here's one from the New York Times, totally bought out and paid for by the elites. So Louis Rudd completes his trek across Antarctica 2 days behind Colin O'Brady. So 2 days, they decided they would try to cross Antarctica. Okay, and so as you can see, it's kind of strange just to think about the two people that were going to be the first to complete the trek across Antarctica, unaided, unassisted, and we're coincidentally together. So Louis Reed on Friday became the second person to cross Antarctica, solo and unassisted, 2 days after Colin O'Brady of Portland, Oregon, became the first. O'Brady, 33. That's another number, like I was saying before, that you might know. They start off usually with a number 33 or 66 or some number related to basically devil worship, which ties into a lot of the secret societies. So, and Rudd was just 49. Okay, so a captain in the British Army. So they have to tell him he's in the Army, British Army. So they began on November 3rd. And so another 3 here, definitely. They 3, 33, 66. Those are all numbers they use. So Rudd finished his journey on day 56 at the foot of Leverett Glacier at 2:21 p.m. Eastern Time, a little more than 48 hours after O'Brady completed his expedition. So this is all a bunch of baloney, basically. They have no people crossing unassisted, soloing these. It's all just to give you the perception that people are actually crossing Antarctica and going to different places that haven't, been explored or haven't been done by people yet, just to kind of throw a mask on what the search terms are doing right now, which is scaring the elites, and they don't want people to understand that we don't live on a ball. So, and this is one of the ways that they do it. They post fake stories like this. So it's nice when you're finished that you're in the polar history books, but it's all about the journey. So Rudd's trek covered 925 miles, according to his main sponsor, Shackleton, a British apparel company. And like O'Brady, he did the journey solo, unsupported by supply drops or similar help, and unaided by kites or other devices to harness the wind to help pull his heavy load. So he did not have any supply drops or anything, apparently. That's what the article says, but it's all baloney. So on Friday's leg, Rudd said he began stripping clothing off because the weather was so warm. So it wasn't white out, it was a flat light. This is kind of a reference to flat Earth. So it's a flat light. You could see the sky, but there was no light coming through the high clouds. So you couldn't see the surface you were skiing over. It was really tricky. It was sort of a hard, icy surface. He stumbled around and fell a few times. So it wasn't white out. It was a flat light. I don't know what that means. It was a flat light. So the visibility was pretty poor. And he calls it wasn't white, it was flat light. You could see the sky, but there was no light coming through the high clouds. So I guess it was dark. There was no light coming through. You couldn't see the surface you were skiing over. It was really tricky. So apparently it was dark on his last leg, on Friday's leg, I guess. The two were reunited on Friday, he said, and they expect to be flown to the South Pole on Saturday. So they were friends, and they were reunited after their trip. So O'Brady beat him in the quest. Rudd is the only person to complete true traverses of Antarctica. His first was in 2017 with a team assembled from the British Armed Forces. He led that expedition. Altogether, he has covered over 3,000 miles in Antarctica, spread across 3 expeditions. Through his latest polar journey, Rudd carried a flag bearing the family crest of a friend and mentor, Henry Worsley, who died in 2016 after he was airlifted from the ice while trying to accomplish what O'Brady and Rudd did this week. After arriving at the finish, Rudd found O'Brady's tent empty, he said, and he briefly worried. It turned out O'Brady had just gone skiing. So after arriving at the finish, Rudd found O'Brady's tent empty, he said, and he briefly worried. So O'Brady was skiing when Rudd saw his tent. And they finally saw, so it's kind of a bonding mention. Oh, they're friends, they're good guys, they're worried about each other, which is total, it's nonsense. It's amazing to see him and be the first to congratulate him in person. O'Brady wrote in an Instagram post, not to mention, it's quite refreshing to see and speak to another human being after the long, quiet walk the last 2 months. So apparently they were walking for 2 months, unaided, unassisted, through Antarctica. And, I mean, it's pretty easy to walk for 2 months with a bunch of stuff, you know. I mean, if not for big guys, you know. I mean, it's not like these are like the only 2 people in the world that could traverse Antarctica. I mean, if someone could run 100 miles in under 2 days, I mean, someone could probably walk every day and sleep in Antarctica. It's just I guess it's supposedly it's really cold there, even though I have had roommates that have worked in Antarctica and said, it's really not that cold when you get up to it. Even going there, it's really not as cold as they say it is. So it's amazing to see him and the first to congratulate in person. Not to mention, it's quite refreshing. They split food. Brady dug up the supplies when he completed his trek, finding a stash that included coffee, chocolate, fresh cheese, and ham. So they're all enjoying it. They finished. Woohoo! Okay. So a lot of people have failed over the years to complete this crossing. So let's look at the crossing really fast. They didn't have a picture on this article, but we're going to find the crossing. So it's not, they didn't cross what people probably think they did, like traverse, from one side to the other side. Say you started in South America side, going south of the the tip of South America, and then they didn't, cross the other side of Antarctica. They went along the border region of the ice barrier, basically on top. So what they did is they had a set just route that they take, and so Antarctica journey, Antarctica crossing. So we can see that they both took the same route, basically. So this is their route right here. So what they did, if you were to look at this on a flat map, basically it would make a lot of sense. So so what they show you, which is totally farcical, is they start here at the Ron ice shelf, and they go to the South Pole, which is not really the South Pole. It's just a pole that it's like a thing that they think, is the South Pole, but there's no pole because we don't live on a globe. So so they go here, and then there's a station supposedly, and then they go here, and so they're unaided supposedly, so they're not going they're not going from point A over here. They're not going all across over, from say Ellsworth Land over to Queen Mary Land. So they're not doing it really like they say they are. They're just going along some route in Antarctica. They're not actually going across Antarctica. They're not crossing Antarctica. You can cross here and go here and say you crossed Antarctica. You're not crossing. And say you're crossing Antarctica, but in order to cross Antarctica, like to cross, you have to go from here to there. They're just going to, from one ice shelf to another ice shelf, basically, which is which is funny. But people buy into it and think that they're actually doing like a crazy, like crazy crossing that no one could possibly do, and people have died doing it or something, which is, it's easy to die doing it probably, but come on, right now, dying from it, in this day and age, you have to be completely retarded to actually die crossing. You have, helicopters, you have, walkie-talkies, all this stuff. You can just contact somebody. So, in this article, let's see what it says here. So, the 930-mile swath of ice terrain. So it's 930 miles. So here we get 930, 90, 30, 30, 93. 93 is very commonly used. 936, 30, 33, 300. They use 32 a lot, So they use numbers definitely to give you a sense of what's happening. After spending a few days camped 10 feet away from each other and feasting on buried supplies left for another explorer who never made it across. So apparently it was they were eating some guy's dinner apparently that never made it across. So I don't know, I guess they were assisted then by something. So you can't really say they were unassisted. The two adventurers were whisked off by a ski plane to the South Pole Scientific Research Station. Wait. So I guess maybe wait. After spending a few days camp, the two adventure. Okay, I guess they finished it and then they were whisked off by another plane to the South Pole. So then they went home. So apparently, yeah, after they finished, they did eat on buried supplies left for another explorer. I don't know. I don't know how. I don't know why. I don't know how that would. It's just funny to me that they would be actually doing that. All right, so and so as you know, Antarctica is riddled with lots of numerology on the map that globe people they love to they use to explain that they live and die by, basically. Um, so yeah, I mean, this is the map that they want you to believe, but there's a point here in numerology that the elites use. So Rockefeller, um, so you can see here Rockefeller Plateau 666 here. I mean, and this is on all maps basically that have Rockefeller Plateau listed. So, and they use 666 meters to actually tell you that it's 666 meters high, which probably not, but they just use it as a code. And the elites they all control Antarctica. They control what's coming in and out, and they control the military. They have teams of people that understand it and the real shape of it, and they fund Masons to go. And I don't trust any Masons right now. I mean, and right here, Admiral Byrd was a Mason, and I mean Rockefellers, they funded him, as you can see here. Yeah, this is a good thing to go over too. The Rockefeller connection to Admiral Byrd. So Admiral Byrd was a high-ranking Navy captain and a high-ranking Freemason, and he made trips up to the north and to the south. And he wrote about it apparently before he died, and he gave people kind of his story about what happened. So, and the stories are pretty fascinating, to tell you the truth. It basically outlines that there are different beings and there are different places that are not listed on any map, and they helped him in the north, and there's lots of land in the south, and he goes over it, and it's a story that's well known to a lot of flat earthers, basically. So let's see here. Um, so this is a good one right here. So a circle or globe cannot be measured by a circle. It has no beginning or end. Only a flat plane can be measured. The circumference of a circle can be determined by the pi formula. Earth is a plane and not a planet. And so the Earth scam with the globe started with pagan Greeks, and the Greeks believed the world was a globe because Zeus said so. So there's always an authority figure telling you what to believe, just like NASA tells you what to believe. And so it's sort of these pagans started this globe model. Greece was the third universal empire in the nightmarish dream of King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon. So um, Babylon, you know, it was one of the first modern cities, and it was basically it's kind of like a whole it's kind of scripted land, kind of like how Washington D.C. and America is very planned out by secret societies and that control this planet. And they go, you can say they're Masons, but it's just kind of just the front, you know, facade of the whole way how they run. So the empire was symbolized by bronze, and where every Greek influence prevailed. That pagan concept also prevailed. So here, the Farnese Atlas, the Farnese family in Italy, a very high-ranking family. They're in charge of a lot of the usury in Italy during the 1400s, 1500s, when the Jesuits were founded. They were, they're nobility, black nobility family. Sculpture of Atlas holding the globe. So as you can see, Atlas is holding a globe. This kind of symbolizes their power in front of the Rockefeller Center. As you know, Rockefellers, they go by 666. It's easy. They own Chase Manhattan Bank, 33. They use 33 symbology on everything, and pretty common sense stuff. It's even on all their Swift codes they use. If you're trying to transfer money, you have to use the term, the name 33, or the number 33, with the name and the Swift code for Chase Manhattan. I mean, it's everywhere. So the pagan Greek myth of the global Earth dominates Rockefeller headquarters in New York City. It's called mythology. Mythology. It's a myth. It does not actually happen in real life. So the sculpture is based on the Farnese Atlas, which is a 2nd century Roman marble copy of a Greek sculpture. So the Farnese Atlas is a 2nd century Roman marble copy of a Hellenistic sculpture of Atlas kneeling with a globe weighing heavily on his shoulders. It is the oldest extant statue of the Titan of Greek mythology, represented in an earlier vase painting, and more importantly, the oldest known representation of the celestial sphere. The sculpture is at the National Archaeological Museum and Museo Archeologico Nazionale in Naples, Italy. It stands 7 feet, and the globe is 65 centimeters in diameter. Okay, so as you can see, Farnese, Naples, Farnese family, and then we have, as we go down, the famous portrait of Queen Elizabeth I, right here, painted after the defeat of the invincible Spanish Armada, shows her hand resting on a globe. So as you can see here, if we can blow up this picture, you have the Freemasonry hand right here, and you have the hand on the globe, which is a way of symbolizing her loyalty to the secret society, the facade society of the Masons. Basically, it's a front. It's like a fake way of getting people in, just to steer them into a more secret. It's basically like a cult, basically. So influencing them and to do things for them. Masonic actors and people of high power. They're all Masons. They all are Masons, or they have to do Masonic symbology if they're in high places of power. So here, Queen Elizabeth is definitely controlled. The modern replica of the 16th century Globe Theatre, where the Shakespeare plays were first performed. So, Shake the Spear. Okay, Shakespeare. And Shakespeare is basically he wasn't really a real guy. He was just a name, made up, invented, by these people, these secret society members, and just to give you their control on literature. At the same time, the Jesuits were busy translating the corrupt Latin Vulgate into English and inventing new words like poles to explain their new global earth scam. So yeah, the Jesuits in the 16th century and the 15th century were busy definitely corrupting language and using words to basically subconsciously program you into believing we live on a globe. So, and after a couple of generations of this lie, it basically it's set into stone. I mean, the human consciousness will just accept it as fact, and if it's cemented in reality by hundreds of years, that people that have high authority, have authority, and if they can tell you that they are smarter than you, then you'll believe it. So yeah, while the Virgin Queen and her child were busy writing the plays, the fanatical Jesuits were working feverishly translating the corrupt Vulgate into English. This was taking place at Douai in France. So before the Elizabethan era, the word pole simply meant a long piece of wood. After her reign, it also meant the poles of the earth. Okay? So, yeah, they had Jesuits had a lot of places they were set up in. I mean, Douai could have been one place, and there's probably other places too. And so we have some Bible passages I won't get into. So it just tells you about poles and the Jesuits, how they have corrupted a lot of translations of the Bible. So the Earth now has poles, okay, and the stage was set for the indoctrination of the global Earth scam. So statues of Queen Victoria with orb and the scepter are found throughout Britain and the Empire. On the right, can be seen a photo of Queen Elizabeth II holding the orb and scepter. Two of the greatest deceptions of Satan in the last days are women ruling over men and the global Earth scam. So as you can see here, this is coming into fruition. Women now are getting a lot more power in society, and as you can tell, there's a lot of movements right now that are seeing this, and they kind of are going against what the mainstream agenda wants them to. So the MGTOW movement, especially. But I mean, right now, women aren't they're not ruling over men. It's not like they're controlling them right now. So once the idea of the Earth having poles had been firmly planted in the minds of the people by the ubiquitous use of the globe, the stage was set to discover the imaginary South Pole. So this is when Cook, his incredible voyages, failed to find the South Pole. So, as you can see here, Isaac Newton was a Jesuit. Just because this says he is a Jesuit doesn't mean he was a Jesuit, okay? I don't want you to come into this not understanding what you're listening to and just believing this for face value. Go and research this stuff by yourself. This is just one website, one piece of data. This is not YouTube. This is a different website, okay? people, come into this, and just because you read it off this and that doesn't mean it's true. Well, of course it doesn't. Just because you read a science book in school doesn't mean it's true either. It's just where you get your information from. Is it documented? Where did they get the documentation from that supported this? I mean, it's just a whole chain. So, okay, just relax, okay, and and if you want, you can go to other sources and get your information to verify this. But Isaac Newton was a Jesuit. Okay, he has he has paintings that go back centuries that show him with Masonic hand signals. It's common known hand signals that you have to do for Masons. He's painted having his Masonic hand signs. So here, let's go back. Isaac Newton was the inventor of gravity. So he invented gravity, or the super glue, which made the spinning and Earth globe deception scientific. So Newton was contemporaneous with the fifth monarchy men who believed that the kingdom of Christ was about to be inaugurated with the demise of this despotic king. So he believed that the fifth monarchy men he was believed that the kingdom of Christ was about to be inaugurated with the. So he did not support these despotic kings, and so he did not like the monarchy men, and so he was a man of the people. Okay, so that's what they want you to kind of sell you as. He was a guy who was just a normal guy. He had he had a farm, apple farm, and he was thinking about what makes this happen. He was the first guy to think about what causes an apple to fall. It's just a bunch of nonsense basically. So Jesuit Isaac Newton was contemporaneous with and a bitter foe of the fifth monarchy men. So he was trying to refute the Bible books, Daniel and Revelation. He invented gravity, the miraculous force that keeps the oceans and all living things glued to the rotating ball Earth. So, yeah, this is just a story that the Jesuits make. And the Jesuits being just the front runners of the elite families. And with, the Vatican as well. So Newton was named for the patriarch Isaac in the book of Genesis. So as you can see here, Isaac Newton, his name, Isaac went physically blind from old age, but Newton was spiritually blind all of his life. Okay, in 1703 he was made president of the Royal Society and was knighted by Queen Anne in 1705. After his knighthood, none of his fellow countrymen dared question his bizarre scientific theories. So since he was the president of the Royal Society, so the Jesuits made him president of this society controlled by the elites. He was knighted, so he has this authority-based presence now. Okay, so you cannot question him now. It is science now. So Captain James Cook was born the year after Newton went to meet the Creator. So right after Newton died, James Cook was born. Okay, this goes and so this was right after Newton died. Under the guise of the scientific expedition, Captain Cook was determined to plant the Union Jack at the South Pole. Okay, so now they're going to these poles. Okay, so they're trying to find the pole. So they have Captain James Cook. He went all around the Pacific, right? And then, he went everywhere. He came back to England, and then he went out again, and then he went everywhere. And so eventually he was killed in Hawaii. supposedly by a pack of Hawaiians, on the Big Island. And I've actually been to the place where supposedly he died, and they killed him. And at first they thought he was like this god, apparently. I don't know. It seems like a bunch of baloney to me. Hawaiians would think that he was like some prophesized god that would come and save them. So after Cook's great discovery that the South Pole didn't exist, Britannia decided the best solution was to misrule the waves and keep the knowledge completely hidden from the rest of the world. Okay. So he spent 10 years, though. Let's back up. He spent 10 years and sailed an incredible 70,000 miles searching for the non-existent pole. Cook's second voyage lasted from 72 to 75. And during that time, he sailed around the flat Earth at least twice. So what he was doing is he was just going around the perimeter. Say, if this was a flat Earth right here, he was just going around the perimeter twice, at least twice, that's what they say. So when he arrived back in London with news that the South Pole didn't exist, there was a panic at the Royal Society. Sir Isaac Newton was in danger of being totally discredited. Okay, so he came back and said, "There's no pole. I'm going around in a circle, basically." So in 1846, Admiral Sir George Seymour was ordered to seize California with its magnificent harbors overlooking the Pacific Ocean. And so this is kind of telling you that they needed to seize California. Clements Markham was a young midshipman of Seymour's flagship HMS Collingwood. So Markham, as well, he was a driving force behind subsequent voyages of discovery to the illusory South Pole. Markham was secretary of the Royal Geographical Society between 1863 and 1888, and he organized the British National Antarctic Expedition of 1901 and 1904. After Byrd's last expedition, the job of policing Antarctica was taken over by the Rockefeller-owned Pentagon, and any uncredited person who ventures down there will not return alive. To satisfy the curiosity of the people living on the flat Earth, they decided to explore outer space instead. Okay? So as you can see here, John Rockefeller Jr. Sent a Mason Byrd to discover the imaginary South Pole. In 1928, they had to fund a high-ranking naval expedition and to basically fund a Mason to do it who was in the Navy. As a British Secret Service agent, Rockefeller knew perfectly that there was no South Pole, but people were curious about the true shape of the world. So people wanted to know exactly in the 20s what was happening and what the shape of the Earth was. So, I mean, it wasn't really that long ago. I mean, we still have people alive that were born in this age that, I mean, they still had not been to the South Pole or knew exactly what was going on in Antarctica. So it's not like in 1605 they were, going to the South Pole and mapping out our globe. So in 1928, billionaire John D. Rockefeller financed an expedition to discover the South Pole. Naval officer Richard Byrd, secret service agent in Britain. Rockefeller knew there's no South Pole. Okay. As you can see here, another symbology, Rockefeller Plateau, 666, devil worshipping, satanic family, Antarctic ice wall, circles flat Earth. Okay, so if you're still with me, so here's the scripture verse that describes the circular ice wall. So here we have a Bible verse that has a actual ice wall reference. So when Jehovah prepares the heavens, I was there. When he set a compass upon the face of the deep. Rockefeller was, that's what in Proverbs. So upon the face of the deep basically means the deep lands outside. Rockefeller was obsessed with the dogma of the global Earth, so he kept sending BYRD back to discover the South Pole. BYRD's last expedition was 55 to 56. So the last expedition for BYRD to Antarctica was a massive military operation known as Deep Freeze. From that time onward, all civilians were forbidden to visit Antarctica. So around this time, we have NASA being founded, and we have Operation Deep Freeze. So you see how this kind of fits in? NASA was created right after this to basically shift consciousness of the outer perimeter of our flat Earth to the fake space that they want you to believe in. The magicians want you to believe in. Those who rival in the art of deception. Basically, this is the art of deceiving people. Okay, so NASA is not there to give you information that benefits you at all. It's there as just an entity. It's not you call it whatever you want, an agency, a corporation, whatever. But it's just there to tell you that you can go somewhere where you can't. And so they're just trying to hide this to basically steal your humanity from you. Okay? So I'm mirroring another video. So if you want to check out that video, it's called Antarctica Bases Exposed. So this was a pretty good video from the one of the I think it was research Antarctica research channel. So incredibly, Rockefeller owned NASA was born right after Admiral Byrd returned. So yeah, right after Admiral Byrd returned, they started NASA. They found there's nothing. They would just wanted to cement it into consciousness. Television was happening. People were being more connected now. Their newspapers were being outdated. They couldn't just control the newspapers anymore. So they knew eventually technology was getting more and more advanced. They had to start releasing it. The highlight of the Rockefeller Global Earth scam was the Mickey Mouse moon landing in 1969. So yeah, moon landing's all faked. This is all blatantly faked. It wasn't even really meant to be there to do a good job. They knew that people would just buy it. If it's on the television, you just buy it. I mean, it's something that you just have to buy. So you can fit into society, you can have your job, and this and that. So that scam was followed by this, the space shuttle, satellites, the ISS, things like that. So there's not like there's not like 6 or 7 international space stations. There's just one space station, and it's it's so advanced and complicated, things like that. They just sell this to you. And so they can just, and the end of this page is just telling you how the Rockefellers own government agencies. They own Smithsonian Institute, the National Geographic Society, National Science Foundation. They own the United States Geological Survey. All vied with each other in pushing the global Earth scam. Meanwhile, back at the stationary flat Earth, people in the know still use maps of the flat Earth. So the Earth was still flat in 1892 when the Gleason's New Standard Map of the World was published. It did not become a rotating ball floating in space within the last 100 years. Aviation was one of the most exact scientists, and pilots do not allow for any rotation of the curved Earth. So, as you know, pilots, they do not account for anything to do with rotation of the Earth. And one of the ways they'll explain it is that there's this band of gravity that they fly in, and so their gyroscopes, which are rigid in space, they don't need to actually conform to any sort of curvature because they're going along this imaginary band across the sky. And all this nonsense people buy. So the 19th century's greatest construction projects proved that the Earth is flat. So the Suez Canal, definitely, there's no curvature on any of it. Engineers, they did not take into account any curvature. Ceremony for the last spike. Utah, no one took any account of the curvature. And so what we get comes from the corrupt Latin Vulgate version. So the Jesuits changed a lot of words to sort of subconsciously program us into a ball Earth. Okay. So if you are feeling the heavy burden of the Rockefeller globe pressing on your shoulders, Christ can also lift that heavy burden and set you free. So if you want to believe in Christ, go for it. That's up to you. I believe in a form of Christ. I believe I am creating my own reality, and I have a pineal and a pituitary gland in my brain that secretes oils, and that I am christened when that oil returns from its journey back into my my third eye consciousness. I mean, I believe in lots of symbology, and but if you want to believe word for word that literally Christ was here, then you can. There's no reason to stop you from doing that. So that's about it for that. So I just want to close it up now, and thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, and I hope to see you soon. Oh, and look at right here, penguin, Freemason sign right here. I just saw that. Woohoo! Uh-oh. Yeah, see? Top hat. Man. Top hat. That's a creepy dude. Alright, see ya.